and she had the police come to her neighbor's house
Sorry.
with 8 police with 8 guns. The stress was so much for Edwige that it took her 2 days, to be able to function
Wow.
again properly
Yeah.
because of the adrenaline the rush she got from those policemen, and it was unbelievable.
Yes.
Two
So
days, she was completely out of it.
that's what our body is capable of, producing all these hormones that are stress hormones that will help us survive or run fight or flight response. But sometimes it produces too much, and the body doesn't cannot get rid of it as fast as possible. I don't know if you've heard also about these cases where a person just grays his hair from one day to another because of something that happened. It just shocked him
A
so
trauma.
much. So that trauma, especially creating adrenaline and cortisol, needs a lot of minerals from the body. So it leaches it from the hair or from the bones or for whatever, and afterwards you just deplete it. You don't have it enough. You have to wait a bit or really rest to compensate for that excess moment of stress or moment of extreme changes.
That-
Estella also say that when she starts to getting worried about what to do next day. Yeah, that's also one. Not only what we did the day before, but what we're doing next day.
Yeah, being anxious.
We're gonna talk about it a little bit further into the presentation, but that's one of the stressors that the mind stressors that we need to start working with it, because at school we never get taught about how to work all this. It's more an obscure topic that we need to learn from ourselves.
and nobody learns. I feel like if stress is an ongoing, constant issue in our society, often I've actually believed stress to be one of the great motivators. Like it keeps us like moving forward sometimes. In a certain sense, but to exchange of what, of our health, of our well-being, and like
Yeah,
some.
it's amazing how when we're even in elementary school, we're starting to have stress about tests and exams
Yeah.
and what. Well, except if we have a teacher like Tony, he's been teaching kids for his whole life, and he has a different approach for on that, I think.
But all joking aside, it is a huge problem at schools right now. Kids, even in the elementary level, 5, 6 year olds are so stressed about coming to school and social media. It's really getting to be a problem, that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just
I
younger
agree.
and younger.
I think that's the key for that, because I'm also teaching elementary school now, Tony. If you didn't know, I've started 6th grade, and
Oh, good for you.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. But I'm having a hard time. I'm trying to not give them a stressful schedule, and I'm trying to make
Right.
them understand that if they fail a test, it doesn't mean I won't give them a second chance on that test, so they don't have to stress so much
Yeah,
at it.
you got to do
But
that.
at the same
Always.
time,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I feel like if I don't stress them a little bit, then they won't take it seriously and they'll never do the test properly. So I think there's a
Well, I
balance
think
somewhere.
stress. I don't think stress is bad. It's actually what promotes growth. The
Okay.
problem of it lies in not having time to actually bring everything down, to relax. So it's going the two different directions. As we saw it on the breath, that we have that big inhale where you're completely full, you go to the maximum, and then you go to the minimum. So it's
Wow.
that lack of proper rest after a stressful situation that's the problem, and a constant pushing for more and more and more. And it's also what's happening with our environment. It's always pushing it to the limit, never having that rest, never having a pause in any way. It's always going ahead and going for more and learning more. So I think it's mostly lies what's happening in society. I think it mostly lies in the pace we are choosing to go. We're
I
going
think so
faster.
too. I think so too, and I gotta admit that I didn't think about it so simply, and this I liked what you said about stress not necessarily being bad. You know, it's more about being able to unload, right? To
Yeah, and it's not having those techniques to actually unload and stop thinking about that project or stop thinking about that problem or stop thinking about that what's moving and that's the problem. It's identifying ourselves with that single situation. So it's once we start learning how to cope with them, I think we could manage.
I gotta admit that that's so true. But you know, we were talking about school and stress a minute ago. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I gotta admit that school does teach it to you sometimes because you know you stress for the test and then the test is done and then you get to unload. You know, like what I had a hard time is when I started working. You know, at work sometimes the stress never unloads. It's like it's ongoing. You know, and I remember as my dad was dying, I remember he was, you know, at the hospital on his deathbed, and I like looked at my dad and I'm like, Dad, how the hell do you get rid of this stress? You know, like how does it end? You know, like it's like if you just finish one and another one starts in. I feel like that's the life of adulthood. It's just one stress after another. You know, sometimes I you know, I don't know.
Well, I think it's that way because we've never been properly taught how to actually stop it. It's just an ongoing thing, and it's like riding a train that never stops. Stella asks what it is to unload.
Descargar,
Sí, sí, soltar, release. Yeah.
to let go.
So let go. James, can we go to the presentation?
Absolutely. One second. Here we go.
Okay, so we all agree that stress is actually the opposite of rest and relaxation. And also, what we talk about, it's not that it's a bad thing, but it's properly knowing when to use it. It's a tool that we needed some time to push to go forward to achieve something, but afterward taking the time that if it took me this much effort to get to that point, I would also need to take that time to do the opposite, to recharge and to rebuild. So we go to the next slides, James.
Yeah, Alexandra just says that, and you can open your microphones, guys. They feel comfortable doing it. But she says in North America, they teach us since we are kids to be competitive and always try to reach the top. So it's hard as an adult to think otherwise. And I think that's actually really true that we're kind
Yeah.
of stuck in that. This slide right here, Pepper Reps.
Well, this one just shows, and the next one too. However, we're going to be talking in three different senses about the relaxation. It's the relaxation and the rest of your body, the rest and relaxation of your mind, and the rest and relaxation of emotions. Starting to have control of these three different components of our being. So it's as we said, it's like having three different switches and knowing when to turn this on and turn this off, turn this one on and turn this one off, having all of them on, having all of them off. And when we start having that control, we start having a kind of freedom of liberty to start using our and expressing ourselves a little bit better through life. So it's three different. This seeing it, we're gonna be seeing in this presentation in these three different senses. Does it
Okay,
make
that's
sense?
super interesting. And because they're interlinked, because you remember you said that because of an emotion of a threat, my body would create a hormone in my mind. So ultimately, if I understand properly, as much as these things can interrelate themselves negatively, we could probably interrelate them positively also. We could use the body to relax the emotions, maybe, or something like that.
Correct, exactly like that, because they're all connected and one affects the other and one affects the other. It's like the first or the basic structure that is stable in nature is that triangle. If you have three legs in that triangle and they're stable, you don't have any problem. But
Cool.
if you have a problem in your mind that it's worrying you, you're having an economic issue or you're worried about not getting enough money, if that's the mind thing, then it starts triggering in your body all this response that maybe you won't get enough food and you're gonna, it starts bringing all this adrenaline and cortisol, then brings that emotion of depression and it just starts bringing this circle or this cycle that The emotion fits the mind, and the mind fits the body, and then the body responds, and the mind.
Wow.
So you're in between the three of them. They're just telling one another that they're just fucked. Ultimately, sorry for the word, but that
Yeah.
it's that's what happened. So if we start telling one of them, start telling the body, okay, relax, then that starts helping the other two.
A chain reaction.
So the problem is when we have the three of them that are all of them barking and jumping and anxious. So when we start doing a little bit of work on one, the other one starts responding. If we do work on two of them, then it will overcome the third one. So it's very interesting to see in dividing it in three different beings, if you will. Imagine that you have three people living inside yourself. So you start balancing that out.
So it's
So we're
not
gonna start,
it's not that
yeah,
little devil and that little angel. It's we've got body, mind, emotions. They're fighting each other, right?
yeah.
So which slide do I
So
go to? Next one? This one?
yeah, so we're gonna start with a body part, the physical part, that sometimes is the most accessible to us because it's the most tangible. It's hard to start talking about emotions or thoughts when it's something that's flying out there, that it's in the ether, or
Yeah.
where is your mind? Where could you locate your mind or your thoughts?
You can't. Well, you can, but you just I love that. Maybe some of you know. The Little Prince, El Principito. The Petit Prince. And
Yeah.
one of the big sayings in Le Petit Prince is everything that is important is invisible to the eye. You know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it is an interesting statement. When you think about it, that anything that's important is invisible to the eye because it makes you realize that there's way more than the body. But what's nice in what you're saying is that we can use the body to rest the mind and the emotion. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that for sure.
Because as the last drawing that we saw, the triangle with body, mind, and emotions, is the mind also, if it's overactive, it doesn't let the body recharge. That we see it on the next slide. Uh, so the recharging and rebuilding on your body happens when you're relaxed. It doesn't happen at any other moment.
Hmm.
If you cut your hand and you need to heal, or if you got a surgery and got your
Yeah.
wisdom tooth out, if you just go out and start working out or running or cutting wood or going, you're not giving enough energy for the injury to heal. You're wasting your energy on something else. So in
Okay.
order to heal, you need to stop, you need to relax the physical body. So if we go to slide 6, the easiest example to use is a car. Imagine your car is having some problems. You need to fix whatever you need. There's something wrong with the engine, or the carburetor, or whatever part is not working. If you want to get it fixed, are you gonna fix it while you're running it, while you're driving it, or you're
Absolutely
gonna
not.
take it to a shop and stop it?
Yeah, you're gonna stop it.
You're gonna stop it. You're gonna open up the hood. You're gonna look at it. You're gonna think, what's the best thing to do? Should I do this? Should I change this filter? Should I? You take your time. You stop completely, and that's the only way that you can start fixing the car. So we compare it to a body. If you have any body issue, any illness, anything, you need to rest.
Uh-huh.
But see that we were talking about the resting. Maybe you're resting your body, but if your mind is running and your mind is stressed, you're actually not resting. You're not letting your body heal because your mind is still running. You're still producing cortisol. Your nervous system is overactive because your nervous system should go to the minimum. You should turn it off. You should put the button in the off position in order for actually start putting your tools inside the car. If the
Did you
car
see what
still
Estella
on,
said, Pepe?
huh?
Did you see what Estella said? She
No.
uh, she said you say that the first thing to do is relax and then work out. So Do you agree with that statement? Like before you.
If I understand the question correctly, yeah, we're also having this episode before the actual movement episode because it's more important to learn to actually how to relax than to go and actually work out and exercise.
Wow.
Because if you don't know how to turn your body down, you're just putting more stress into your body. Oh, I'm gonna go exercise, but then you go home and beside all the stress you had, you need to uh, you don't know how to turn the body down to actually heal or to rebuild or to build a bigger muscle. So relaxation is
Key.
first thing before working out. If that's what your question was.
Yeah, I think
Was
that
that
was
it?
the question. Yeah. Do you want me to go to
Yeah.
the next slide, Pepe?
Yeah. So in order to start this relaxation, this healing, this change inside our body, we need to start cutting the stimuli out. Because when we go to bed at night, we usually sleep at night. It's proven that it's easier to sleep at night than at day. So we should start cutting all those stimuli, the light stimuli, the sound. You should stop food. You should stop your mind. You should stop watching stuff. You should stop movement. For instance, persons or people who live in a noisy place or a noisy city, you think it's easy to relax?
No.
So it's a stimulus that's coming out of our body. So it's first checking, we're talking about the physical body, checking all your senses, the eyes, or the sight, the hearing, the touch, and making sure you're cutting all that stimuli that's coming onto you. And the internal stimuli are the ones that come from your organs and from your worries and all that.
I noticed you didn't put smell there. So it's okay if it smells like shit somewhere, and you.
Do you think, do you think it's easy to
Where the
relax?
hell are you hanging out?
No, it's just I'm wondering if I
You
should
don't
stop
want to
farting in
know.
bed for my girlfriend. I figured maybe that's the reason she's having a bad sleep.
Well, but farting makes the whole system relax too. So I really important.
It's hurting when I laugh.
So movement. We see all the main parts. We go to the next because the first one we see is light. Light is one of the most important components for actually making your system to turn that switch off.
Estella's
And
telling us that she can't relax because her husband is so loud in bed. He snores too loud. That's when you have to tell your husband to get to exercise. Because
well, an easier trick is to use earplugs. Earplugs are a good way. You have to try different brands. It took me like a year to actually find earplugs that were actually comfortable and would cut all the things out. Because when I know that if I have a day that next day I need to be really rested and relaxed, I take my plugs out so a dog doesn't wake me up or a airplane doesn't wake me up. To really rest, you cut out everything that's coming through your ears and it makes the rest more uh, profound. But you,
Alex says that I don't listen to her. It has to be her. You have to tell me, Pepe.
I thought we were only in relationships between James and I realized, Pepe, that you're actually part of our relationship.
Yeah, 100%. You can ask Eva the same thing. She'll tell you the same.
yeah.
This is a four-way relationship.
So, yeah, making sure you're not disturbed by noises when you sleep, it's an interesting thing to try out and try different brands. As I told you, I worked with 5 or 6 different earplugs. until I found one that was completely comfortable and I could just uh, put it in without any disturbance. Okay, so in this one, what we were going to talk about in this slide is light. We go to the next one, James, and the next one too. So melatonin and serotonin. Have you heard about this?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Is,
Yes.
Yes.
any,
Yeah.
is anyone taking external melatonin or serotonin pills? Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Yes. For my the stress I had in my life that I
Uh-huh.
could not function because my cycle, menstrual cycle, every 2 weeks, I would absolutely see
Yeah.
dark. I there was no way I could do any solutions working. I was always so I started taking sertraline.
Mhm. So uh,
And it's for
melatonin and
melatonin.
melatonin and serotonin are the two on and off hormones for your body.
Yeah.
Okay? So in order to properly rest, your body needs to start secreting melatonin. If you're not secreting that melatonin, you won't be able to rest. That's the chemical part of it and the physical part of it. And if when you wake up you don't start secreting serotonin, you don't have energy, you cannot wake up. So it's like the on and off button of the body. And how is it created and how is it affected? The thing that affects this relationship of these two hormones is light. Light
Wow.
makes it go on or off.
Wow.
Yeah.
So most the big problem that's happening now, and we can thank Thomas Alva Edison for this, the light bulb, having that light at night, especially if it's a bright light, what it does, it tells the body to not switch.
Mm.
So that's and especially now with telephones or with screens, when we look into a screen and we're receiving all that bright light into our eyes, we're not switching, we're not making that switch. That's something that happens with light and dark. So in order to start relaxing, we need to stop having that stimuli of excess light once the evening starts happening.
That's
Are
interesting.
you following me with this?
I'm, I am,
Yes.
I'm. This is so true to me. Like certainly a guy like me who spends so much time on my computer behind so much light. I can totally agree with this statement.
It's very hard to actually start relaxing after you just had a big light shine into your eyes. And the first time I actually experienced it was when I was living in Masunte, because you don't have street lights there, you don't have excess light, you can actually see the stars. And when it started getting dark, I started getting sleepy. And my
Yeah.
body started saying, "Oh, it's time to go rest." So
Yeah.
even if I wanted to push it and I wanted to go to sleep later, the body was signaling that it was time to go to sleep. And as suddenly as morning started, my eyelids started to feel that light was starting to come on. So I started to wake up and I was energized.
Wow.
So I started analyzing all this, and I had read all this, and yeah, the melatonin, certain, but until I actually experienced it and saw how light really controls all this energy cycle, that it's a natural cycle, I could not take it for granted. I could not believe it. I had to experience it firsthand to actually see that. So now what I do at night at home, I very rarely have lights on. I have very low light settings. I use candles, and that makes me go and relax faster. I go to bed and I start going down very easily. So lights start cutting the stimuli of your eyes. Don't bring so much light into your night. And some people say, oh, but that's when I want to be checking my emails and my things and my stuff. Doing that at night also doesn't help at all because it just brings more thoughts and more processes to your brain.
So that's a first switch, right? Our body can start helping our mind. And I must admit that me too. I live in the woods here, so when it's dark for real. And when I'm in Mazunte, I do agree that my mom is way more manageable. So it must do something, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
So that's
Pepe,
one of
here,
the first. Yeah,
Oh,
Tony.
here in Western Europe, last month it was dark at 4:30 in the afternoon. You have to have the lights on. I have my lights on now. What time is it here? It's a quarter to five here, and I've got the light on as
Yeah.
well. So
Okay.
what do we
So
do about that? So less lights, and I want to watch television later on. So, oh, and I have to have that light on. So what can I do to help?
well,
You're busy, Tony, for this part of the night.
I'm not going to bed at 6 o'clock.
Turn the lights off and go to bed.
so
No.
it's very interesting what you're saying, Tony, because um, I don't know if you heard people that live farther away from the equator. When it's winter time, where they don't have enough sunlight, they start getting periods of depression. Because as we
Yes,
say, it's this balance between melatonin and serotonin. And the perfect balance, and that's why you see it in tropical countries, that you see that people are more loose and with less depression, and they go out and they dance, because it's almost 12 hours and 12 hours. But when you go to a place when it's a complete opposite, you have too much of one thing, too much melatonin, and not enough serotonin. So that's why the sun is also important. It's finding that balance. I'm not saying do this and this one not. It's finding that 50-50%. So you're in the middle. You can go to rest and then you're active. You can go to rest and you're active. If you live in the North Pole in winter, of course you're gonna need an external light stimulus to actually being able to go and do something. That's why bears usually hibernate for so long, because they live in cold winter places, so they don't need to wake up at all. They just stay sleeping all the time.
yeah, and that's so
So
true. Here in Canada, when May arrives, everybody changes. Like it's like if all of a sudden everybody's outside, the lights out, we're all happy, and then December rolls in and we're all crying and you know and having a hard time. That's why
yeah,
mom goes to Mexico, I'm sure, because the winter is too hard here for our
yeah,
uh
no, it's very stressful. Actually, climate and light like this, it creates a lot of stress in the body. The body needs a lot of energy to actually maintain its temperature, and for some people, it creates a lot more stress than others. So living in a place where you don't have to worry about the temperature regulation in your body, it just takes out a lot of stress about it. And
exactly.
also with the joints, for the synovial fluid to properly go around the joints, it's cold is not good for the body.
um Christina's asking about she'd like to know a bit more about serotonin, and I agree. I'd like to know also a bit more about serotonin. I've heard a lot about
Okay,
it.
so both melatonin and serotonin regulate various functions inside our body, such as appetite, mood, and sleep. Serotonin is what we would call a neurotransmitter. So, simply put, that means that it's responsible for sending messages between the nerve cells
Wow.
and the producing responses. So, it comes in between all the nerve cells in order for communication to happen. Melatonin,
Interesting.
on the other hand, it's a neurotransmitter-like substance. It's not a neurotransmitter per se, but it plays an important role in regulating our circadian rhythm. That is like the body clock we were talking about. And this rhythm controls the aspect on our body in all the hormone release, temperature, and sleeping pattern. That's the most important part. So also serotonin, as that what your main question, it can be described as our body's natural happiness drug. That's what makes you feel like good. It's a feel good hormone that increases positivity and it helps us feel more energized. So this energy is particularly important because it's what lets us wake up in the morning and take away all that sleepiness that would otherwise will keep us in bed. Mostly people that are depressed, they don't produce enough serotonin. They just stay on the melatonin side. So that's mostly what serotonin is.
And is that
So
why depressed people
it's a
always
very
feel
long
like
topic.
sleeping?
Sorry.
Is that why depressed people are always feeling like sleeping? I hear a lot of people that are depressed tell me, I just want to sleep all day. That explains
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. And it's such a vast topic. We could talk about it for so much
Yeah.
long. I
And
don't
we're
want to go
already.
much deep, but that's the first switch. Start understanding this switch, and it goes hand in hand with technology. What we were talking and what we'll be talking next episode about the no notification peace of mind. That actually looking at your screen, you're not helping that relaxation to happen. So start thinking a little bit about that. Seeing when can I start getting off of the looking at this screen.
Hmm. Exactly like Walter said. I love that. Pepe, we don't have much time left because so I think we should move at a somewhat faster pace than we used to, but I don't want to go too fast either. It's so nice to have everybody here.
So first switch we see it. It's light and dark. Start working with light and dark. So if we go to the next, it's finding the correct sleeping position. Because if you're sleeping in a wrong position, your body start getting aches. So it's like having different body parts activated. So this is a slide that shows a bit of how the spine should be in a good alignment in order for it to distribute the electrical messages properly. We see the next one.
It almost looks like it's in the neck, right? Like there's so much going on with the neck for this.
Yeah, or the lower spine too. The hips have usually also have a problem with that. So it's finding that correct alignment, and so finding a position where you can actually rest, and something that we usually don't think about. We think about sleeping as just the bed or the mattress. Having extra pillows of different sizes can help us maintain this alignment properly to having because we usually buy a pillow and the pillow is just a pre-sized pillow and it's something that is or too big or too small. It's actually finding the right size that when you go to that position it's like this is so comfortable. It's finding that spot where you're not hitting a nerve or you're hitting something else.
Hmm.
So it's taking your time to actually find that sleeping position, that resting position, and it can be also a napping position. It can be a hammock, or it can be something else.
Yeah.
So,
Bless you, Edwin.
when I say sleeping position, it doesn't have to be the traditional one. They told us it's like this. Just find how you feel better and how you feel more relaxed.
I actually like
Alexandra?
this a lot, Pepe, because I knew a gymnast and she slept with like 7 pillows or something, but she could bend her body in every direction. So in a certain sense this explains, I'm guessing she was way more in tune with her body because she was a gymnast and such a flexible one. So in a certain sense I see this here and I try to understand better. But I really like sleeping on my stomach. This is my favorite position, and I do have lower back pain a lot when I sleep a lot like this. So maybe I should try putting a pillow here, see if it changes
Yeah.
something.
Well, you say that the gymnasts, mostly gymnasts are over flexible. So they need extra support, otherwise their joints will be on a contortion position while they're sleeping. So
Uh-huh.
it's actually finding that people that are more rigid, maybe they don't need that extra support, but her joint will be just all completely loose.
That's so
Alexandra
interesting.
had a question.
Yeah, well, I have two questions. The first one is, what are some positions that actually you won't need a pillow to sleep, and you won't feel any pain, if there are any? What would you suggest about this? And my second question is, I've seen that the right position and the right way to sleep, based on what I'm seeing on my screen, when you look at the pillow next to, under the head, there's like a way that like it's bigger when it comes like on, like right on your neck compared to
And
the
then
rest
it
of
goes
the pillow.
down. Mhm.
Is it because like it's a specific pillow for this, or is it something that like you can try to do with the one that you actually have in the
Well, they,
house?
they are both. You can buy it like on that shape, or that you can shape it a little bit to get that thing. The only thing you need to pay attention to when sleeping is the alignment of the spine. It should always follow that wavy
Natural.
pattern, and not getting it flat, because that's what you get compression. And it takes a bit of time to actually find that sweet spot, but it's important to find it, because you spent a third of your life in that position.
Hmm.
So it's really important to spend it properly and not hurting, because sometimes people wake up with pain after sleeping, and
Yeah.
that's no good. So it's
Very
finding
true.
that place where you wake up refreshed. So start playing. If you can, buy little pillows or different sizes and start playing with it. Sometimes, for instance, Eva loves to sleep with a huge pillow and hugging it. But I'm that huge pillow usually. But when I'm not there, she has a big pillow that just
I'm
lets
that
her
usual.
stay like this. Or
It's good that you're mentioning that she's only using it when you're not there.
Pepe,
yeah,
you're not that huge though, so it can't be that huge of a pillow.
well, it's not that huge, but it's huge compared to normal pillows. That's what I mean.
Do we go to the next
And,
slide, Peps?
sorry,
Do we go
I
into the
just
next
one
slide?
more thing in between the legs, especially with hip problems. It's important to maintain a one cushion or pillow between the legs. It just
Uh-huh.
keeps the alignment of the hips, because you have to see it like three dimensionally, like from the top, from the sides. Is it twisting this way? So it's important.
You're
Okay,
talking
we
about
can
this
go
one, right?
to, yeah,
You're talking about this one here, right? The
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we'll go to the next. So we're talking still about the physical body, because as we said, switch one is light, switch two body, but then we have the organs. How often are you using your organs? If we go to the example of the car, how often do you have to change your oil? Every 10,000 kilometers. How often do you have to check the engine? Every 3,000 kilometers or whatever. But what about your organs? How often are you giving them extra work? Because they also need time to relax and time to rest. A person that is eating sugar every day, it's just overusing the pancreas. You're not letting it relax. You're not letting it
Mm.
recover from the extra producing of insulin. So the same with the liver. How often are you taking alcohol? How often are you letting it relax? The same with the stomach. How often are you eating? How often are you putting stuff for it to digest? So, starting to think of our organs as independent beings and letting them relax, letting them time to relax, that's when they actually gonna work better, because you're giving them time to rebuild themselves, to recover, to clean themselves. So it's important to start asking this question. That's why people start having problems with different organs, because of overuse with them. You don't let them relax. So the easiest example, the alcoholic is the liver. The diabetic is the pancreas. You have a filtering also with kidneys if you have problems with electrolytes and stuff like this.
Interesting. I've never thought about it this way. I see there's testicles and a vagina here. Am I supposed to interpret something about that? Like, is too much sex bad or not enough sex bad?
Exactly. It's finding the right spot, because if you don't use anything that you don't use, also starts atrophy. And the same with your muscles, because if you're not using your muscles, you they have the same response. If you're overusing your muscles, if you're overexerting yourself, you're running on an Ironman and you don't rest enough, you start making all those organs just go backwards. The same with the joints. If you overuse the knees or if you overuse anything.
Man, this is so interesting for real. Um, the next one, we've talked about this one a lot, me and you. This next slide, we've had like many conversations about this, but I'm sure.
Yeah. So with this one, we jumped into the mind because we saw the three different, that was body, mind, and emotions. So the last slides were the body part. Now the mind, how do we control that thing? That's the hardest one. I think we start with the body because it has a formula. If we stop this, we get this. But the mind is something so complicated and something that we still are learning so much from, that how do we stop our mind from jumping around and thinking of this and being worrying about the other thing, and then another thing comes in. So it's a greater challenge. So that's why starting with the body will make it easier on the mind. Okay. So in the mind, we're gonna try to simplify it a little bit, talking about brain waves. So we go to the next one. The nervous system can be measured, its activity can be measured through scientific means, through devices that measure how fast or how slow are they going.
Interesting.
Our mind, when we're worried, when we're thinking too much, we can see that it's jumping and it's going fast. We call that the beta brainwave. When we start relaxing, when we start meditating, where we go to a relaxation state, we jump from a beta state to an alpha state. When we start going drowsy and starting losing consciousness, just relaxing, we go to the theta state. And when we go to deep sleep, that's when regeneration of tissues and cells and the rest of the body starts happening. We are delta state. The problem in our culture is that we're just stuck in one single brainwave, in the beta, in the alarm and state. And we don't know how to dial down to all the other states. We're always overusing and overstimulating, watching, digesting information, reading some news, listening to something else. It's always stimulates beta. It's having the computer on and it's always analyzing. So in order to start bringing this switch down, we have to switch from beta to alpha. That's the first step. And we see it on the next slide. The alpha brainwaves correspond to a state of relaxed alertness and calmness. Okay? So how do we do that? We start cutting the stimulus out, cutting out what we're reading, what we're doing, taking a time of our day, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, to just relax and don't take stuff in. Got all the stimuli that's coming out, just do nothing, just turn it off. We say it's the monkey mind because it's always looking for watching new things. Oh, I'm gonna watch a new Netflix series. Oh, I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna go into Facebook and check what they posted. Oh, I'm gonna see if they like my comment. Yeah. Always looking for always stimuli that's coming. It's jumping, more. So going to the alpha, it's starting to cut them out. Just shut them off, shut the eyes, shut the ears, shut everything, and just come down. And it's starting to do it little by little. First 5 minutes, 10 minutes, until you start being used to just being comfortable of not receiving all this extra stimulus from the outside. If you don't start doing it, you will never be able to do it. And that's what's happening with our culture and with education. We never get a time to not receiving, just digesting what we've been receiving, being it a visual stimuli or an auditive, or we learn something, just taking your time. No, okay, now it's time to just rest the mind.
So difficult. I find, I don't know, maybe Pippa, you can tell me if it's a crazy idea, but me and Alex have this great habit of, writing down a list of things to do. And then, we're doing our, like, beta, and gamma situation. And then once the list is complete, and that's the challenge, right? Is doing a list that is completable in a certain sense, you know? And so we finish our list,
Uh-huh.
and then I feel that once that list is done, we get to alpha, like we're like, oh, yeah, whew,
Yeah.
we're done.
Yeah, because that list is a very it's a very helpful resource because once you get it from the cloud that is up here to a tangible thing that's written down, you unload again, you bring it down, and it's not jumping down there. So you take it out from your mind in order for it to
Hmm.
become something doable. Because if you're just there up there thinking and you don't see it physically, it's hard to actually relax on those thoughts.
This is going to be an
So
interesting
it's
episode on the pledge when we're going to talk about all this. How are we going to pledge to relax and to go to alpha and to theta, right?
yeah, and it's giving us certain tips and advice to actually do it. So we're gonna talk about those steps to do them. And so that's the mind, and it's the tricky part, and it's also tricky because it's talking, it jumps a bit into meditation. That's what meditation actually is. With meditation, you start taking control of your mind and your thought patterns. That your
Interesting.
mind doesn't decide when you think about something. You tell the mind when to think about something, and it takes time. It's a training, as it's as hard as working the body, working the mind, and really being in control of it instead of it controlling you. It takes some time, but it's just practice, a little bit of practice, and you start
And it's
understanding it.
and it's training that I feel is very not respected in common culture. Like meditation is almost seen as voodoo or like if I can permit myself bullshit by a lot of people.
Because it's like it's doing nothing for some people when it's actually the most important part to bring that relaxation. We're so alienated from relaxation, and it's so uncommon for us that it's not seen as an actual good thing.
Well, that's so interesting. Are we moving to emotion? We're already 5 minutes late, but some of you told us that you were not happy that these things weren't lasting an hour and a half. We were expecting 45-minute sessions, but today we'll go a bit longer to finish up this great presentation Pip is doing, mainly for me, because I'm interested. But let's get to it. I think emotion is next, right, Pepe? And these slides look amazing.
Okay, so we talked about body, mind. We go to emotion. That if the mind is hard to control, emotion takes a step further. It's really, really hard to take a hold onto emotions. So in this slide, what we're seeing is that when we're having certain emotions, our body um, starts generating either heat or cold. These are pictures are taken in bodies of people feeling different emotions. So we go to a colder state or a warmer state. If you're happy or if you're depressed, this one is like what we're showing up here. A body that is energized and a body that is depressed. You don't get enough circulation. You don't get much of that around. So we go to the next.
This one, this is so interesting to me.
So starting to notice that depending on the different emotion we have, we generate different energy and different warmth in the body.
Wow.
We can start building that bridge between the body and the emotions. We can start if we're depressed. You see the one in the middle, that white, that blue one, that you don't get any reds or yellows. If you start moving your body or exercising, you start bringing warmth, you start bringing movement to our
Wow.
body, you start changing that.
So
The
interesting.
same for different things. So it's building that bridge where we saw in the one of the first slide, those triangles. This is one of the easiest ways to start communicating emotions with the body, because it's really hard to move emotions without using the physical body. it's a really complicated matter, and there are some people are studying, but I think that the fastest way is to start using physical movement to start changing emotional patterns. So
This picture to me is super telling. Not because shame is Spider-Man, that's the thing that is funny, right? But like I do admit that when I am, in love or I'm pride, I feel that feeling of warmth in my body. It's not just mystical, it's real. I'm sure everybody here who's gone through these feelings can understand that this is not just a weird magical story. We actually go through different warmth and cold pattern depending on how we feel. And I do find it very interesting that anxiety and shame, you see how I had learned in a class in university that when we were going through stressful times, our body would protect our internal organs and would sacrifice our ligaments. And if you look here, in anxiety and in shame, it's doing exactly that. Our main body is heated, but the rest of our limbs are getting sacrificed, like if they weren't important anymore. So this is like super interesting to me, this picture. It's telling me a lot anyway.
Yeah, we're gonna see at the end one that it's bigger, that it has studied all the different ones. But the one that you said in shame, you see when we're ashamed or we say something, it's the cheeks that turn on red. That's why it's on the brighter color.
So
Oh, wow.
So starting to feel and starting to communicate with all these feelings, and it just brings awareness to how you're feeling in your body to start this connection with your emotions and your body. And it also takes time, but it's a very interesting journey to start feeling all this energy patterns. So we go to the next. It would relate a bit to what you just said about how you protected the organs rather than the joints and all that. So in this one, just a second.
Am I going to a certain slide here, Pepe? 23? This was the one I think you were talking about with all the...
Yeah. So the organs are also very related to the emotions.
Wow.
We have stimulus from the external senses, but the internal senses communicate with our nervous systems and also create the emotions. So in the one in number 21, the last one, other one, 20. Sorry, 20, James.
Perfect. Here we are.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is from Chinese medicine. That it's an interesting chart that it relates the different organs with the different thoughts, emotions, and areas of your life. So you can also start paying attention to the different ones. For instance, if we talk about Earth, it talks about its relationships to stomach, because it's where you get all your nourishment, and it relates to your home life and your security. So when you're having thoughts about that or problems with security or life, it relates also to how the energy in your stomach is related, and maybe you can start having problems there. So this is a little chart that you can start working it to relax different parts of your life, jumping either to the thought process, to the emotion, or to even the social part. Like water is related to fear, wood is related to assertion, to being anger, having anger, or being a timid person. Fire with excess or lack, the joy. So it's interesting. Putting it in this context, it gives us extra reference for all that. Because if we go to the left, we just see that the organs also keep communicating with the body, telling us how fast are they working. If the stomach is working too much, then maybe you're overcompensating for a lack of feeling secure in your home, or having enough to eat. You overcompensate with that, so you make it work more. So that just makes that triangle be more connected.
This is mind-blowing to me, Pepe. I'm very happy we're doing this conversation. Even if I think that we could have had this conversation probably, in the beach, swimming somewhere, at some point. But really, this is really interesting for real. This is some of the most interesting material you've given to me, I think, in my life. I'm very impressed. But I think we have to try and conclude now. So maybe we can try
Yeah.
and figure out how we can
So
conclude this.
we go to the 24, 23, just to look at the all the different kind of emotions and things and feelings that you could have, and how your body just has more energy on this body part or this other body part. Like you see, when you're reading, it's mostly your brain that's working, so the rest of the body is relaxed, and then that's an activity that will relax your body but stimulate your mind. You see?
I see. Yeah.
Or when you're eating it, something it's finding different activities to either activate mind or body, or seeing how you
This is
you
a
work it
beautiful
out.
graph. Like it's got so much stuff. I'm gonna try to zoom in for people to look here if they can check. But you see, look, love a whole body experience, tasting just the mouth, satiation just this, first literally just the. This is so interesting. Look, depression, feeling pain, doesn't panic. Oh my God, look at that! Wow, such a
Yeah.
telling graph.
And so it all comes. So this is the emotion part, closing all this triangle that we saw in the beginning, and it's seeing how often do we stimulate one thing or how much we consume one thing, and it's all coming to finding that we need to stop doing some things for a while, taking that time to stop. If you're working 6 days a week, you need at least one day to rest. If you're jumping that day, you're falling behind. And the same thing is happening with our ecology and with our planet. We're not letting it rest. We're just extracting and doing. So we have to start taking care of it, and stopping doing excess consumption and excess bringing in stimuli to the system.
So there's even an environmental message to this little period here today about how this is not just about our body. This is also about our planet and how we need to learn how to respect it in a way that we have to stop. Like this idea of
It needs it rest too. As much as we need rest, every system needs a time to recover and to rest. If we don't do that, it just gets to a point of no return. The same, it's no different. The planet and the body and everything, or a plant or an animal, it needs that periods of rest, periods of no use. Um, Thing that I like about the Judaic tradition, Jewish people, that they take the day of Sabbath. Some of them, the more Orthodox, they take it seriously, and some of them even don't use technology. It's one day a week where they cut themselves from all the things that they used all the time.
wow.
Just having that little switch off. I think it's a very good habit to start thinking about, to take our time to stop even one thing. If we're not able to stop one habit, if we're not able to stop drinking beer just one day a week, if we're not able to stop eating two donuts one day a week, we're just pushing one system or another, be it the liver or the stomach or the
Everything.
mind or whatever. We're pushing it. We need at least one day of rest in everything.
It doesn't have to be the same day. Could we stop one day beer, the other day sugar, the other
I,
day, or should it
yeah,
all be the same day?
just to stop one thing at a time. It doesn't have to be the same day, but realize that it's needed. You cannot do the same thing
Yeah.
every day. It just makes you run crazy into a crazy
Hmm.
cycle.
It's just because stopping at the same time work and alcohol at the same time sounds like a bad idea to me. Generally, when I stop working, I want to keep the alcohol going. I'm just joking, but
Yeah.
so is this
So
your four pieces of advice here, Pippe?
yeah,
Breathe.
the last slides that we're gonna really talk about it, as we said on the pledge episode, in the last, there are different methods, and we also, as we need to find out the best ways for us to sleep and the best position and the best thing, we need to find our ways to actually do all this relaxation. There's countless of ways. You can do breathing, you can exercise, you can socialize. One that is very important is finding a hobby, a thing that you love doing. That's something that helps relax both the body, the mind, and the emotions, because you're doing something because you like doing it. No one's forcing you. So
Interesting.
finding a hobby and finding a thing you actually love doing is one of the fastest way to relax and disconnect from other activities. Because if you don't have time for a hobby, you're just working, 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 working. You don't have time to do music or watch a movie or go even have a glass of wine. Find a way of how you, what hobby you like doing. So there are different ways of doing all this relaxations. It's finding that you said about smell. We can use aromatherapy. You can take a walk. Going to nature is one of the fastest ones because you're just in a big system that it's balanced by itself. So you just get into that, listening to music, breathing deeply. That doing deep breaths, journal. Are there so many ways of doing these different connections?
Well, Pepe, what a great episode today. I really liked it. I was a big fan. I hope everybody else appreciated it today. We're going to see each other on Tuesday. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks a million. Fantastic.
Thank you. It was very interesting. Thank you.
Really
And
good.
thank
Really.
everybody for coming.
Adios.
So,
I'm going
any
to hang up
questions
all
for
the
the
lights now.
relaxations?
If you've got questions, we're
Close
here.
lights.
Lights out.
Lights
Lights out,
out.
Tono. See you later. See you Tuesday at 1 in the morning.
Bye.
See you, la mère, je t'aime.
Mutu. Bye, Stella. Bye, Christina. Bye, Eva.
Que bien
Bye,
de te ver
Pepe. Thank
todos.
you.
Ciao.
Love you guys.
Bien bueno. All right, Pepe, I'll see you in our private call. That was so good, Pepe.